She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and she's got me living in.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. I am back. I know I haven't posted a video in a while. I've still been posting on Crime Weekly. We have still been posting podcasts on Crime Weekly because I did those ahead of time, but I took a very lovely week off with my family. It was amazing. I'm so glad I had that time with them, but now I am home and ready to get back to work, and that is also lovely, and I'm glad to be here. So thank you guys for giving me that grace. Thank you guys for giving me the time to be with my family, and I'm sorry there was a lack of content for a while, but trust me, I really needed it, and so did my kids. So today we are talking about Orrin and Orson West. The disappearance of Orrin and Orson has been a prevalent story in the news for over a year, and I had held back on talking about it because initially there was a lot of information being provided, but a lot of it was speculation, and a lot of it wasn't really backed up by tangible evidence. It was just, theories and things like that. Theories based on I think logic, but still it made it a confusing case to research and cover because I really didn't want to put something out there and then find out it wasn't relevant or it was completely fabricated. It was hard to tell the difference between what was what, but I have been following the case closely. I've been checking in every other week to see if there's been new information released, and just this month, arrests have finally been made. So, as I like to do, we're going to go over the case in a linear way, following the timeline, and then we're going to discuss the new developments. But before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. Y'all probably know I love HelloFresh. I've been using HelloFresh since the start of the pandemic, and that's because HelloFresh makes cooking at home fun, easy, and affordable. I am obviously a wife. He put a ring on it, and a mother, but I'm also a very, very busy businesswoman, and it's tough to wear all those hats. I know a lot of you ladies out there feel me. I want to get my work done, but I also like putting a home-cooked meal on the table for my family when I can, and that's why I use HelloFresh sometimes several times a week, because they help me achieve that accomplishment, and they make it look easy, because it is easy. With 50 weekly menu and market items to choose from, including ready-to-eat salads, sandwiches, and soups, there's something that everyone in my family will love. Even when I try a recipe that my kids aren't sure about, and Aiden's like, I don't like zucchini or something like that, HelloFresh sends me such delicious and fresh ingredients that they end up loving what I've made anyways. With HelloFresh, the produce isn't sitting in the grocery store waiting for me to grab it. It's sourced directly from farmers and arrives to me at peak freshness and flavor. And HelloFresh has more 5-star recipes than any other meal kit, so my family and I know that we are in for a delicious treat no matter what we receive. And the time it saves me is essential to my life. HelloFresh cuts out the whole shopping, planning, and prepping portion of cooking, so we can just get to the fun part, actually cooking, and get dinner on the table in just about 30 minutes or even 20 minutes with their quick and easy options. This is also super helpful to me in avoiding food waste, and ultimately it saves me money. Everything HelloFresh sends me is pre-portioned, so I'm getting exactly what I need to prepare that specific meal. If I'm shopping on my own, I always get too much. I'll get like an entire container of sour cream when I only need like 3 tablespoons, and the rest ends up going to waste. But that does not happen with HelloFresh. And the packaging that they send the ingredients in is made almost entirely from recyclable and or recycled content, meaning that HelloFresh's carbon footprint is 25% lower than that of meals made from store-bought groceries. Plus, you can save up to 30% by using HelloFresh versus grocery store shopping. And my husband and I love bonding while making our HelloFresh meals. After a day of both of us working on our own things, we love to come together in the evening to talk while we put together a delicious meal for our family. This week, we made creamy chive chicken with lemony rice and a Dijon apple salad, and it was such a beautiful meal, so fresh tasting. The flavor profiles blended so well together. I didn't think I was going to like that apple salad, but it ended up being the favorite thing on my plate. It's one of our new favorites, this recipe. We've been cooking with HelloFresh for a long time, and if you want to try it out for yourself, go to HelloFresh.com and use my code stephanieharlowe16 to get 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts and free shipping. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. It is a staple in this house, so give it a try if you want to save time and money and give yourself a little grace on those busy days. Once again, go to HelloFresh.com and use code stephanieharlowe16 to get 16 free meals, 3 surprise gifts, and free shipping. There's an E on the end of Stephanie and Harlow. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's case, and let's dive into the video. So the two boys we are talking about today, they weren't born Orrin and Orson West. In 2016, the boy we know as Orrin was born Sincere Pettis, and the following year, his brother, who we know as Orson, was born Classic Pettis. Their mother, Ryan Dean, lost custody of the two boys after an alleged abuse incident with another family member, an incident that she claims she was not present for nor responsible for. It appears that this abuse allegation had something to do with a leg fracture that Orrin West had sustained. The last time their mother Ryan saw them was around Christmas in 2018 while they were in foster care, and in 2019, these foster parents legally adopted the two brothers and changed their names to Orrin and Orson West. Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adopted parents, they had 4 other children, 2 biological children, and 2 additional adopted children. And initially, they resided at the Casa Loma Apartments in Bakersfield, California. But in September of 2020, the family and the 6 children under the age of 10 in their custody moved 70 miles away to a 3-bedroom home located at 10717 Aspen Avenue in California City, California. There are going to be a lot of questions that come up as we go through the now established timeline of the evening of Monday, December 21st, 2020, the day that Trezell and Jacqueline West claim was the last time they saw Orrin and Orson. At this time, Orrin was 4 years old and his brother Orson was 3. And on that day, Jacqueline claimed that she was inside the house wrapping Christmas presents. So she sent the boys outside to play with chalk on the cement patio while her husband, Trezell, chopped wood to start a fire because it was a chilly evening. Jacqueline claims that she didn't want the boys to see the presents before they were wrapped, and Trezell was going to be outside for a short time anyways, so it seemed like the perfect solution. Now, one of the main questions that comes up when this narrative is put forth is obviously, where were the other 4 children at this time? If Jacqueline didn't want Orrin and Orson to see the unwrapped gifts, she certainly would have felt the same about her other kids, who were all older than the 2 young brothers. Yet, there were no other children outside with the boys at this time, and we will get to that later on in this video. So, Orrin and Orson were out on the patio playing with chalk. Let's take a look at the home so we can determine where they allegedly were when they went missing. This is a picture of the front of the home, and you can see from this picture that there's a pretty tall wooden gate surrounding the house and closing in the backyard. This picture of the back of the house shows the cement patio that the boys were allegedly paying on. It's right off the house. It's not a large patio, but it is admittedly big enough for 2 little boys to have some fun with chalk for a short period of time. Let's go to Google Earth to get an aerial view of this property. You can once again see the backyard is completely enclosed, and on either side, there appears to be undeveloped lots. So, Trezell claimed that he was outside chopping wood, and when he walked into the house with the chopped wood, he saw the 2 boys still playing on the patio. But when he exited the house again, just a few moments later, they had vanished.
Okay.
From our yard.
Okay. It was cold. I was gonna make a fire. It's a lot of wood in this. area right here next to our house. I open up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest two would go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. We keep them close. So I was playing with chalk, and I came in the house. I saw them there. I went in the house. I came back out. I didn't see them there. I immediately went back in, asked my wife, did you see the boys? She said, no, they should be outside playing with chalk. I said, well, I didn't see them, so I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. Once that hadn't panned out, I got in the van. I looked down the street, both directions. It was getting dark, getting cold, and I got in the van and I hit a bunch of corners. I went down this street. I turned my light on. I searched. I called their names. Talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there. He didn't see anyone. So then I came home and I told my wife we need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We gotta get going. So I called the cops. Cops came. First thing they did was tell us to stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there, and we wanted to keep searching.
According to both Trezell and Jacqueline, the boys disappeared around 4:30 or 5 p.m. because it was getting dark at that time. Trezell says that when he saw the kids weren't there anymore, he panicked for several reasons. One, because it was getting dark and colder, and two, because he realized he'd left the gate to the yard open. And so he ran back inside and he asked his wife Jacqueline if she'd seen the boys. And when she said no, he claims he ran back outside, searched the yard and surrounding areas frantically. He looked up and down the street, called their names, and then he jumped into his van and drove around looking for Orrin and Orson, continuing to call their names. He says he even stopped and asked a man who was outside if he had seen the boys, but he had not. At this point, Trezell returned home and he called the police to report the boys missing. According to the California City Police, this call came in around 5:40 p.m. and officers were dispatched at 5:43 p.m., arriving at the home by 10 to 6. Police Chief John Walker, in a later interview, explained that with missing children, the investigation will typically start from the inside out. So the police started with the home, the yard, the shed in the backyard. They also brought in scent dogs, and these dogs were able to pick up the scent of Orrin and Orson inside the home, and they did this with the hopes that the dogs would be able to then follow the trail of the boys outside the home and hopefully find out which direction they had gone in. Oddly enough, the scent dogs were unable to find the scent of Orrin and Orson outside the home at all, which brings us to our next big question. If the boys were outside playing with chalk on the patio, shouldn't the dogs have picked up on that? If the boys were living in that home for 3 months, from September to December of 2020, shouldn't the dogs have been able to find their scent somewhere on the outside of the house? In the yard where they may have played, in the driveway where they may have walked to enter the family vehicle. A cadaver dog was also brought to the house, but this dog did not indicate on any areas inside or outside the home. That evening, law enforcement, as well as members of the community, searched tirelessly for Orson and Orrin, but they found no sign of the two young boys. When the sun rose on Tuesday, December 22nd, community members and police were back out looking for any sign of the missing children. That afternoon, Trezell and Jacqueline were taken to the police station for questioning. They were walked out to the car, but they weren't handcuffed, and police claimed that they were being cooperative, but they were asked to undergo polygraph tests. However, the results of those polygraph tests have not been revealed. Just after 6 p.m. on this same day, police served a warrant at the home and they left carrying several brown paper bags and a large duffel bag. Once again, law enforcement did not reveal much about what was removed from the home, but Chief John Walker did confirm that many electronics were taken, including cell phones, computers, and iPads. The West family's white van was also towed and tested for blood using luminol, but no blood was detected. As this went on, volunteers continued looking for the boys, but Trezell and Jacqueline West were notably missing from the throngs of people out searching the surrounding areas. The media did attempt to question the couple, but they declined to be interviewed, and they asked that their names be kept private.
There isn't too much information about what happened to these young boys, but one thing is for sure, the California city community is worried, scared, and angry.
Search helicopters came out. About 100 people gathered to search the surrounding area, knocking on doors.
3- and 4-year-olds Orrin and Orson West were reported missing on Monday night around 5 p.m.
And when I got up, they still hadn't been found.
Jennifer Wood resumed her search efforts Tuesday after looking all Monday night for the missing boys, as she fears for their safety.
These are 2 little boys. They're about 3 feet tall. And if they're out there, they're scared.
The toddlers, believed to be at their foster parents' house in California City, was the set meeting point for another search party on Tuesday. Lamia Patrick, a California City resident, also told 23 ABC that the believed to be foster parents have not come out of the household, besides to speak to law enforcement.
He came out and spoke to the police, but he did not come out and greet the people who are trying to help find the babies.
Parents haven't come out to say boo or hi or thank you for helping or anything.
23 ABC did speak with the believed to be foster father of the 2 missing boys, but declined an interview and wished to keep his name private.
On December 23rd, Trezell and Jacqueline gave their first interview to the media, and the boys' biological mother, Ryan Dean, also spoke to the media. Ryan Dean was clearly distraught. It was a hard interview to watch, actually. She was crying for, roughly 2 minutes at the beginning. She couldn't even speak. It took a good several minutes for her to regain her composure so that she could answer questions and give her side. And when she did speak, Ryan made it clear that she didn't really believe the story of Trezell and Jacqueline West.
Kids did not like them. I could tell. I could tell when my kids like someone or when they don't like someone. I have 2 older kids, and I know, and they didn't like them. Something was going on. It just hurt.
What did the parents tell you?
They said that she said she was wrapping gifts and she let my 2 kids out in the backyard because she didn't want them to see the gifts. But you didn't let the other kids out. Where were the other kids? Why my 2 just go back there? At night, she said it was dark. And it's cold right now, so I know it was cold then. So I don't believe it.
So when did she tell you this? Where were you when she told you this?
I just came here 45 minutes when nobody was here. 45 minutes to an hour, and we knocked on the door. And it took them a minute to come, and he came out. And he want to say he's sorry and all that. I just don't feel in my heart that it's something. They're not.
When Trezell West was interviewed, he claimed that it was completely understandable that Dean would be upset.
For you guys, for people who are thinking that there's some kind of foul play involved, we just spoke to the biological mother. She says she had a conversation with you guys and that she thinks there's some kind of foul play involved. That she thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
That's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it. And I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I am completely sorry because we were entrusted with her children, and they came to us, and they became our children. And we named them, and they are our children, and so we want them back. So please, if y'all could get back on what you guys are doing, we should be able to get a hold of somebody, but they took all of our tech, so they wanted to, I guess, just rule us out, which makes sense. That's part of the investigation. I was going to come, but when I came back home, I decided to call the cops because it was dark. They couldn't have got away that fast.
And why did it take 2 people to go in the house and leave 2 kids out here by themselves? It should have been 1 parent going in and 1 parent right here watching the child, not 2 parents going in the house and leaving 2 little kids out here by themselves for 10 minutes.
No, they were in the backyard, and the back gate was open.
Out the backyard?
And the back gate was open, and I was getting wood from this lot here.
So you guys have been unresponsible and left the gate open, left some little kids outside with the gate open.
All right.
Trezell and Jacqueline also responded to allegations that they had not been helping in the search for the boys, claiming they had been told to stay put by the police.
Okay, and I guess, I don't even know.
I see Yeah, we seriously felt like we needed to be out here. We did. Again, we were told the best are out here looking already. Just to stay put, they have more questions. There was literally a cop with us the whole time in there.
He had sitting down. We would ask, can we go help? They had to sit down.
Said nope.
He said, no, we got the best out there.
So
we
it's
need
not,
you guys here in case you have more questions.
I don't want you guys thinking we didn't try. We actually looked
tried.
before we called
We
the police.
looked, yes.
And that could absolutely be true if the police at this time were suspecting that the boys had just wandered off on their own. They would tell the parents to stay home in case the kids returned, because that's the place that the kids would know to return to if they found their way back. So that makes sense for the first day or so. But I would like to include the fact that Jacqueline and Trezell never really joined in the searches for Orrin and Orson. On this day, the couple also claimed that their other 4 children had not been at the house on the day of Orrin and Orson's disappearance. It was initially reported that the other children were on vacation, and later this was clarified when it was revealed that they were with their grandmother in Bakersfield. Now, obviously, this is suspicious right off the bat, because I totally understand not wanting your children around when you're wrapping Christmas gifts. But if you only have 2 out of 6 of your children, there's a better way to go about this than sending them outside when it's cold and getting dark. Like, why couldn't Trezell have chopped his firewood, something which would take, under 20 minutes, bring the wood inside, get the fire going, and then take Orrin and Orson into a bedroom to watch a movie, all cozy and warm, while Jacqueline wrapped Christmas presents? It doesn't even feel that the amount of time it would take to chop wood would be enough time to even get 1 or 2 presents wrapped. That could just be me. I suck at wrapping presents. Awful. It takes me forever for it to look good or halfway decent. But, you got to cut, you got to measure, you got to tape, you got to sort through the presents. Sometimes you cut the paper too little, and then you got to find another present that'll fit in there. Well, how many presents are you getting wrapped in 15 to 20 minutes? And with the amount of time that it took for Trezell to bring the wood inside the house and go back outside, in his words, only a minute, would that have been long enough for 2 little boys to wander away far enough that he wouldn't have seen them when he looked down both sides of the road? Would it have been long enough for some stranger to pop into the yard and steal away with the 2 boys with no one hearing or seeing anything? So either that didn't happen, or he was inside for much longer than he claimed to be. That evening, neighbors reported that there was some sort of excavation going on in the backyard of the West home, and Chief John Walker explained that they had spotted some patches of dirt in the yard, so they decided to dig throughout the area to make sure that nothing related to the boys was in the yard. Now, he doesn't say, we were looking for bodies, but that's obviously, in my opinion, what they were looking for. Chief Walker also announced that the police department did suspect foul play at this point because they had ruled out the possibility of the children being in the backyard after the digging, and there was no indication of how Orrin and Orson would have gotten out of the backyard. Chief Walker said that there was proof that children were living in the home, but when he was asked if those children included Orrin and Orson, he responded, quote, "Not necessarily." In the initial stages of the investigation, police had gone door to door talking to neighbors in an attempt to find out more information, and they also collected security footage from homes that had cameras, including a home directly across the street from the Wests. At this time, law enforcement discovered that no one in the area had ever seen Orrin and Orson at the house, although some of them claimed they knew that children did live there.
From every neighbor you guys spoke to, not a single sight of them?
No. No.
When was the most recent that a neighbor cited they'd seen the kids?
None of the neighbors have seen the kids.
Ever?
No.
Additionally, surveillance footage from December 19th, 2 days before Orrin and Orson went missing, this was recovered from one of the neighbors, and in this video, 2 adults and 4 children are seen leaving the house, getting into the family van, and driving away. But when the van returned to the home, only 2 adults emerged. It's believed that this was the day when Trezell and Jacqueline took their other 4 children to their grandmother's house in Bakersfield, California, but that raises the next obvious question: where were Orrin and Orson at this time?
Where are these two on the 19th, Chris? That's what I want to know. Where are they?
Yeah, great call, Vinny. I mean, here, the math speaks for itself. And so as an investigator, that's the first question you're going to ask, right? I mean, you're going to bring the family, you're going to sit down with them, and you're going to say, look, 6 minus 4 is 2, and those 2 are missing. So, let's talk about that first. And so in these types of cases, obviously with kids, your first 24 hours are critical. I mean, critical mass is like, the clarity of the focus of that investigation. But in this case, to your point, if that surveillance is picking up those 4 kids a couple of days before they're even reported, the other 2 are reported missing, yeah, that's a huge red flag. And they're going to focus pretty heavily on some search warrants to get in that house fast.
Yeah, they've already dug up the backyard. They didn't find anything in the backyard. Now, here's the problem. They're 3 and 4 years old. So, and what they said is that the other 4 went to Grandma's house, but they didn't bring Orrin and Orson to Grandma's house because they were too young and they're sort of rambunctious. Which, okay, maybe it makes sense. You don't want to overburden Grandma. I don't even know how these 30-year-olds could handle 6 children. God bless them, because they're all 10 years old and younger. But they said the 4 older ones are at Grandma's. Now, they said that. Then I see the surveillance video. That, to me, that's got to be them driving to Bakersfield to drop off the 4 kids, because they come back without them. So, someone has to watch a 3 and 4-year-old. I mean, it hasn't been that long since I had children that young. You don't leave a 3 and 4-year-old home alone, Chris.
Yeah, and that is the exact place I would start as well, Vinny. First thing I'd say is, well, who'd you leave them with? And, see where it goes. I mean, because if there is this other, unknown caretaker, well, by golly, let's identify that person. Let's see what they say. Maybe they're involved. I don't know. But, it certainly is suspicious in nature if this video, turns out to be, what we think it could be. It's bad. It's not good.
So apparently, Orrin and Orson were very rambunctious. Trezell makes sure that we know this, and he repeats this phrase, this word, several times. Rambunctious, rambunctious, rambunctious. Just in that one interview, he says it more than once. So it's possible that Trezell and Jacqueline didn't want to saddle Grandma with 6 very young children, but the trip from California City to Bakersfield and back is roughly 140 miles. To drive there and back would take over 2 hours, and there's no indication that Orrin and Orson were being watched by another individual. The West family was new to the area, the California City area. They didn't know many people, and their relatives all lived in Bakersfield. So we can assume that Trezell and Jacqueline would know better than to leave a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old alone in a house for over 2 hours, especially when there was more than enough room for the 2 boys inside the van and they could have come along for the ride, even if they weren't going to stay with Grandma. So why did only 4 children get in the van on December 19th? Where were Orrin and Orson at this point? Another YouTuber, AV Watchman, was able to obtain more security footage from a neighbor of the West family. It looks like, I don't really know him or how he functions, so forgive me, but from the footage I saw, it looks like he drove there and talked to the neighbor, and the neighbor was like, yeah, come in. You can, look at this footage and record it. And that's exactly what happened. And this video shows what Trezell was doing when he claimed he was chopping wood and when the boys went missing, allegedly. In this footage, we can see Trezell exit the house around 4:12 p.m. We can see him go over to the gate. He's bending down. He's kind of walking and moving from one side of the gate to the other. And he does this for a few minutes before going back inside the house at 4:18 p.m. So if Trezell was chopping wood, he chopped his wood much quicker than 20 minutes. At 4:21 p.m., the lights in the backyard came on because it was starting to get dark. And around 4:30 p.m., Trezell exits the house again, and he sort of stands there for a minute. And I'm going to assume that this is the time that he's claiming he noticed Orrin and Orson were gone. So he sort of stands there a minute, and then he gets into his van, where he once again sits in the van for a minute before starting the vehicle and pulling away, driving with no urgency, just sort of like casually pulling out and turning down the road.
There you go. So the light came on. You see it?
Which, in the front?
Yeah, the front little light. He opened this side door. You see the door open?
Okay, the door's open to the van. Yep.
Yeah, you see it?
Yep.
So he's gonna hop in his van right now.
Hey, can you guys see this video? Hit 1 if you can see it pretty good.
Okay, so he turns his van on, bro.
Okay.
So apparently he's looking for his kid, but it takes him about a minute just to sit in his van and turn his car on, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And he didn't even look in the front yard, nowhere on the sides, you seen it.
Nothing.
He didn't come up the street. So he hops in his van. Look at. I don't think he's going in a speed where you're searching for somebody. You're going pretty fast. You know what I mean? You made that turn right there. You're not looking for nobody. You know what I mean?
Okay, where's he going?
He makes that turn, right?
That right here by his house?
So, you gotta figure your kids are missing. You don't know which direction they went, right?
Right.
So he takes off that direction for I don't know what reason, looking for his kids. But we got lights, Christmas lights on this side. We got a big open lot. He's got his fence line right here. He didn't even come out to look behind his fence line.
He didn't do none of that shit.
None of that shit. Your kid missing. Why would you jump in your car?
Yeah.
You're gonna.
Of course.
Correct.
You guys just seen that, right, guys? So he walks out. He freaking gets in the van. He doesn't even come to look in this area here.
No neighbors.
He's not running down the street, freaking looking this way. He's not running that way.
He sits in the car.
He sits in the car. He gets in, starts it up, warms it up for a little bit, and then he just casually drives out.
Trezell and the van were gone for about 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, before he returned to the house. Now, what you do not see in this video is anyone urgently searching for 2 little missing boys. Trezell does not run around the backyard. He's not searching the vacant lots located on either side of his house. He doesn't even go and check the little shed on his property. At no point during this alleged panicked search does Jacqueline ever emerge from the house to help Trezell look for Orrin and Orson, and this was very suspicious to everyone because you'd think if you were told by your husband that your 2 young children were missing, your first instinct would be to run outside and start screaming their names. You might run around frantically. You would want to do something, even if you knew that your husband had already searched, because in that moment, you feel out of control. You feel like you need to do something. You need to regain some control over the situation. You can't just sit on your hands when your 2 little boys are missing. What we also do not see in this video is anyone leaving the yard or entering the yard. We don't see 2 little boys tottering out of the open gate and into the road. We do not see some dark and shadowy figure entering the yard to abduct 2 little boys. We don't see any of that. And law enforcement didn't see anyone entering or leaving the property on any of the surveillance video collected from neighbors. It was almost like it never even happened. The community really came together, not only to search for Orrin and Orson, but to offer prayers and support and love. Play clip.
We're still, as a community, diligently looking, searching, and trying to get answers. So far, we can't get any answers from the police department.
City leaders have also helped in the search for these little boys.
I was out here a couple nights ago. There were several people out here. I brought blankets out. Everybody's concerned. I mean, almost everybody I run into, that's the first thing they say, have you heard anything about those babies?
The mayor, a couple of police officers, and dozens of local residents came together to pray for justice.
Anytime someone goes missing, it's a tragedy, but we have 2 small children here, and that affects all of us. And I just see such an outpouring of caring and love. People have been here 24 hours a day since the beginning.
4 pastors led the group in prayer.
That if anybody's got the power, you got the power.
Most are from local churches, but one drove more than 40 miles from Lancaster to show his support.
You can see people are showing up, and they're coming from all different walks of life. And so I really do believe that we are able to come together and unite on one good cause. And this, what better cause than to help find some lost children.
Many of the residents tell me that they're going out again today to search for the boys.
But the involvement of the community, it wasn't all positive when it came to suspicion aimed at Trezell and Jacqueline West. On January 2nd, 2021, the extended adoptive family of Orrin and Orson West issued a statement claiming that they had been the victims of harassment and threats from the public.
Where are these boys? No one has any answers.
But as it started to get dark yesterday, some people lost their patience. One resident drove into the driveway of the West family's house and screwed a poster into their awning. A clear sign of the frustration felt by many of the city's 14,000 residents.
But since they've came up missing, I can't sleep. I can't.
None of us can sleep.
I can't get any peace. These are my boys. These are our boys. Our California City boys are missing, and we want to know where they're at.
About an hour later, another car drove to the front of the house and threw a large rock at the window. The impact broke the glass. Others also drove past and honked in front of the house.
I don't think this is the time to start getting rambunctious with the situation. We're supposed to come together and we're supposed to unite as one and find these kids.
Police say the adoptive parents haven't been inside their home since Christmas. Their 4 other children are in protective custody, but many residents thought the family returned last night.
People, they had good intentions behind it. Even though it was violent, they did have good intentions. They want to bring the parents out to talk. We need answers.
Thankfully, the 4 other children had been taken into protective custody when all of this vandalizing was happening at the house, and Trezell and Jacqueline themselves had not been occupying the home since right after Christmas, but the West family alleged that they were receiving death threats, saying, quote, "Our priority is to find out where our boys are and their safe return. The truth has to and will come out to light. We thank those who are standing in the gap by searching as volunteers and fully support all law enforcement agencies in fully investigating all possible scenarios and leaving no stone unturned. For those who have attacked us, wish us harm and ill will, we will continue to pray for you and ask that you direct your energy on helping the actual search." End quote. I mean, the statement's not wrong, right? The truth will come to the light. On January 4th, around 40 volunteers searched the fields near the apartment in Bakersfield where the West family had previously lived, but nothing was found. The next day, the West family released another statement saying that they'd hired a team of private investigators to help locate the boys. One of the private investigators who started looking into this case was named Bill Garcia, and he reported talking to a California City woman who had claimed she'd seen Orson and Orrin in an Albertsons parking lot on December 23rd in Tehachapi. This woman told Bill Garcia that the 2 boys were with 2 men. The 2 men were each holding the hand of a boy, and the boys weren't trying to get away. It seemed like a completely normal situation. The woman said that both men seemed to be in their 20s or 30s. One was black. The other one she thought could have been black, but she didn't get a good look. Garcia told Eyewitness News that he believed the police should focus their searches in the rural areas of Tehachapi, saying, quote, "It is desolate for the most part, with the exception of some ranches, and these would be good areas for someone to dispose of a body if that's what we're looking for," end quote. In response to this, California City Police Chief John Walker said, quote, "I don't know where he's getting his information. We have several agencies involved. We haven't heard anything about that." End quote. Additional searches continued in both California City and Bakersfield, but as the days and weeks dragged on with zero sign of the 2 boys, the search parties dwindled. A reward fund grew, however, as members of the community, local small businesses, larger businesses, and family members of Orson and Orrin donated, and by mid-January, it was at over $100,000. This community was very invested in finding out what happened to these boys and hopefully bringing them home safe. I mean, you're talking California, whose taxes are just ridiculously high. So people are already, under the gun when it comes to finances. You're talking in like the middle of pandemic when a lot of people are out of work and a lot of these businesses weren't even open and operating at the time. And all of these people came out of pocket for Orrin and Orson West. These 2 little boys became important to the people of California City. In February of 2021, Orson and Orrin's mother, Ryan, gave some more information about the incident that had separated her from her two sons in 2018. She said, quote, "I was living fine with them before they came and got them. A small incident happened. I was at work. I noticed my baby's cry wasn't normal when I got home, and I took him straight to the hospital. They say his femur bone was broken and twisted." End quote. She claims that she has no idea how it happened, and, she wasn't there when it happened, and she didn't do it. So she's admittedly upset that her children were taken away from her when she really wasn't responsible for what happened to them, and she feels, there should have been more of an investigation. I don't know what happened, if the police were involved, if CPS was involved. All of these things are pretty much sealed. You know how CPS is, they don't talk. So I don't know exactly the story, but I do know that the femur bone on a child that age is incredibly easy to break, and it sometimes happens accidentally. For instance, my son Aiden, he's 10 now, but when he was just under 2, I think he was like a year and a half old, my sister was carrying him down the stairs, and she had like those little slipper socks on, and she slipped on the hardwood stairs, and she like slid down the stairs. And I mean, it was maybe 6, 7 stairs. And at the end of the stairs, Aiden was crying and he seemed to be in pain, but nothing seemed to be out of place. Like, he wasn't bleeding, he wasn't bruised, and he wasn't walking at that point. So I had no idea that his femur was broken. Oh my God, I felt so bad because he was such a good baby. And I brought him home, I bathed him. You couldn't even tell from the outside that his leg was broken. I brought him home, I bathed him, I put him to bed, and, he slept. He cried for a little bit, kind of like what Ryan is saying, like the cry was different. Like, I knew his cry was different, but I thought maybe he's just scared because he slid down the stairs. Maybe he's tired because we were at my mom's for dinner, so we didn't get home till later. I didn't realize what was going on. I put him to bed, he slept, and then in the morning when I went to get him, he usually pulls himself up on his crib and he stands there, but he wasn't standing there, and that's when I knew something was happening. Now, can you imagine? I had brought him to the hospital to take care of this accident, and they came and took my child from me. I would burn the city down. But people deal with this stuff every day. We have all of these stories where children are left with abusive parents and then they end up being killed. And then we have these stories as well where nothing's going on. It was just a normal accident because kids will be kids and parents can't, have their eye on them at all times, and the kids will be taken away. So something's wrong. Something's broken here. And I don't know exactly the story with Ryan Dean, if she's telling the truth. Of course, there's a possibility she's lying because we don't have the official statement. But I do know that this still does happen, and it's very possible it happened with her. And can you imagine having your children taken away from you because of an accident, and then to have them disappear under the care of their adopted parents? In March of 2021, the Bakersfield Police Department took over as the lead agency on the case, although California City Police Department and the FBI were still heavily involved. But Bakersfield was a bigger police department, it had more resources, and that's where the West family had lived before the kids went missing. And I think at this point, police were starting to suspect, if not before this point, that maybe Orrin and Orson had never made it to California City at all. Sergeant Robert Fair, the Bakersfield Public Information Office, said, quote, "There is a historical tie to the city of Bakersfield with these boys. They were predominantly raised in the city of Bakersfield, family members reside in Bakersfield, and a lot of interviews that have taken place throughout the course of this investigation have occurred in the city of Bakersfield." End quote. Dude, you only needed to say Bakersfield once, like we got it. You could just say here or this city. Why'd you have to say Bakersfield so much? That hurt my mouth. Within 5 days of taking over, Bakersfield PD had executed several search warrants, including one at the adopted grandmother's Bakersfield home, so like Trezelle's mother. They also searched the area of East Pacheco and Cottonwood roads.
This morning, March 6, 2021, the Bakersfield Police Department, in conjunction with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, as well as assets from the Kern County Search and Rescue, are currently conducting a search at Pacheco and Cottonwood in some rural fields. The search is related to the West boys' investigation and the investigation into the disappearance of our children. There's over 50 officers conducting the search. Due to the nature of the investigation, unfortunately, there are things that we have to keep close to our chest. It's not because we enjoy keeping secrets, but my ability to answer specific questions from you is limited because I have to protect the integrity of the investigation. The search has been occurring for several hours now and will continue until the investigators believe that a thorough and adequate search has been done. As far as the reasons why we are at this specific location, it's a natural progression of the investigation. We take facts that we have learned through the investigation as well as tips from the public, which are invaluable into locating these sweet boys, and then we follow up on them.
Unfortunately, the boys were not located during this extensive search, and law enforcement would not reveal what led them to this area. But the Bakersfield Police Department did ask for anyone who had contact with Orson and Orrin in the past year to call them with any information using a secret witness hotline. So now they're trying to get some idea of what Orrin and Orson's life was like before the California city move. And I think to try to figure out when was the last time they were seen by somebody other than Jacqueline and Trezell. Towards the end of March, Wanda West, the adopted grandmother of the boys, made a statement saying, quote, "Someone knows exactly where Orrin and Orson are and what happened in December. Come forward. God and our family has already forgiven you, and you will be free from this guilt and burden I know you are carrying. These are babies who are loved and have an entire future waiting for them to explore. Release them and yourself from this. All we want are the boys back. Children are to be loved, cared for, and protected at all costs. And to have your own grandchildren be stripped away by God knows who is a nightmare that will break down the strongest of us all." End quote. I have no comment on this statement. I have comments on the statement, lots of them. I'm not going to say them right now because I'm trying to be diplomatic. In June of 2021, Bakersfield Police Chief Greg Terry discussed what they had done so far in the investigation. They had issued 44 search warrants. They'd interviewed 88 people. 170 evidentiary items had been seized, and they were continuing to try and extract data from cellular and electronic devices. They'd conducted massive searches, including 3 locations out of state, and they'd followed up on 200 tips. Yet, they were no closer to discovering what had happened to the small children who had apparently vanished without a trace. At least we thought they were no closer to discovering it, because I remember during this time, everyone was like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, are you doing anything? Like, how are you doing all this work, interviewing all these people, doing all these searches, following all these tips, and you have nothing to show for it? I now think they did. They had a lot of information, but they knew where they were going with it. They knew that it would eventually lead to an arrest and probably a trial, so they kept it from us, which in the early days of the investigation, I respect, appreciate, and support. Chief Terry expressed assurances that although a lot of time had passed, this was not a cold case, saying, quote, "Make no mistake, this is very important to us. A lot of resources have been devoted to this case, and we will work until we have answers." End quote. In January of 2022, the biological father of Orson, Charles Pettis, and the biological grandmother of Orson, Brenda Pettis, filed a lawsuit against Kern County CPS, alleging that they were negligent in taking the children away from their parents and placing them in the custody of Trezell and Jacqueline West. Bakersfield.com reported that the complaint alleged that the boys were not under the supervision of their parents when the abuse happened, when Orrin had hurt his leg, and Orrin's grandmother, Brenda, had offered to take both Orrin and Orson into her home while the investigation continued, but CPS had said no. The complaint said, quote, "The defendants had a duty to the plaintiffs to investigate the safety of both the Pettis homes, welfare of the children, and the safety of the environment, but failed." End quote. So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, Charles Pettis and his mother, they're saying, like, listen, Orrin wasn't hurt under the supervision of any of his parents, and he should have been allowed, as well as Orson, to live with Brenda, who's not either of his parents, while the police and CPS kind of did their investigation and put 2 and 2 together and figured this out. But that didn't happen. Why? Why would you rather place these two boys with strangers rather than with a family member that they know while you make sure that their parents' home or homes are fit for the children to return to? And I completely agree with this. Now, once again, I don't know all the information. I don't know all the details. But if the situation is what Charles and Brenda are putting forth, I 100% agree. And that brings us to March 2022, the month that we are recording this video, when very unexpectedly, Trezell and Jacqueline West were arrested on March 1st and booked into the Kern County Jail.
I am pleased to announce that this week, the Kern County Grand Jury indicted Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West. The indictment charges 5 counts. The first count is murder. Charges them both with murder, with the victim being Orrin West. The second count charges murder, with the victim being Orson West. The third count charges felony child abuse against the person of Orrin West. The fourth count charges child abuse against the person of Orson West. And the fifth count charges false report of an emergency.
The grand jury hearing had happened in December of 2021, and it reportedly included emotional testimony from more than 50 witnesses. Apparently, the grand jury believed that Orrin and Orson had never even been to the California City home, and they had been deceased months before they were reported missing. Here is the Kern County District Attorney, Cynthia Zimmer.
On December 21st of 2020, Orrin was 4 years old, and Orson was 3 years old. Their adoptive parents in California City, Trezell West and Jacqueline West, reported to the California City Police Department that the boys had disappeared from their backyard. The California City Police Department began a search for the boys in the area around their home. 1 week later, crucial information came to light that necessitated the involvement of the Bakersfield Police Department and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. Law enforcement worked diligently, hundreds of hours in the next 12 months, looking for the boys. This morning, I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing.
Obviously, we, the public, we're not going to hear the facts of the case until a trial. And if not hearing the facts of the case and having to wait for a trial means that these two people go away for life, hopefully, I'm okay with that. But what we do know is that the bodies of Orrin and Orson West have not been found. However, it does seem as if Kern County is pretty confident that they have enough to prosecute this case without the bodies. So I'm very interested to see what they've uncovered in the last year of this investigation. Both Trezell and Jacqueline West have pleaded not guilty, and their respective attorneys are actually really put out that anything was said during the press conference, even though, let's be honest, there wasn't much said. There wasn't anything revealed that we kind of already didn't know, besides the fact that the police and the DA believe that Orrin and Orson never made it to California City. But a lot of us already thought that because the scent of the boys wasn't outside that house. A lot of us already felt that way. So I don't know what these attorneys are talking about, man, but they're going to try anything they can. The attorneys have accused the DA of possibly tainting a jury pool during the press conference. Not like the story hasn't been nationwide by this time. And Tim Hennessy, lead counsel for Trezell West, said, quote, "Statements that have been used by the Kern County DA in her press conference tend to invoke a tidal wave of emotions towards finding guilt, whether substantiated or not. Grand jury process lacks a crucial and important role of our criminal justice system, and that is the accused and their counsel being present during. There's no opportunity to cross-examine any witnesses, and it's basically ran by the district attorney," end quote. Like, yeah, dude, you're a lawyer. You know that's how a grand jury works. Like, it doesn't say they're guilty. It's saying the grand jury thinks that there's enough evidence to bring them to trial, which is what's going to happen. And at that point, once you're in an actual trial, you'll have the opportunity to cross-examine and put forth your side of the story. Like, that's how it works. What are you talking about? Alexia Torres Stallings, Jacqueline's attorney, claimed the statements made by Zimmer can be misleading or taken as fact before the trial even starts. And she said, quote, "When we hear stuff like, we proved to the grand jury they were convinced, they believed, that isn't the standard in which they make their finding. To us, it was more to clarify that that isn't the standard. That isn't to say that the grand jury aren't humans and they obviously can't make up their own minds. It's just that that's not the same standard in which we know the standard to be." End quote. Dude, listen, I'm not trying to be like rude, but that was annoying. That whole statement was annoying because, first of all, she used the word standard 4 times. That was an overuse of the word standard. And I don't know that any valid point was made in that statement. I couldn't take any valid point from it. You know, I don't think it made any sense. If you guys understand what she was trying to say, let me know in the comments, because it just sounded like she was sort of talking in circles because she had nothing to actually say. In my opinion, the DA, Cynthia Zimmer, she was letting the public know the reason why arrests were finally made. And the outcome of grand juries are often announced to the public. They're only kept secret during the proceedings, so I'm not sure what sort of standard Jacqueline's lawyer is referring to. A jury pool is going to be chosen from the general public, and at this point, this case has drawn so much national attention. There's been so many rumors and allegations flying around. That kind of exposure is what I would be worried about, not the district attorney giving the public some kind of answers after all this time. And that's really the thing here. That's the linchpin. If these boys were murdered by Trezell and Jacqueline, and those two then went on to make a fake report, falsely report them missing, and that report triggered a massive police response, which it did, a massive police response, a massive response from the community using resources and personnel that could have been devoted elsewhere to actual missing children, to actual crimes. That is a problem. And the taxpayers, we the people, we pay for those resources. But it's not only about that. It's about the emotional resources spent, especially in California City. That area made Orrin and Orson their own. They went out and searched. They went home and prayed. They made posters and held monthly candlelight vigils. They brought Christmas presents for 2 little boys who they hoped would be coming back. They donated money. They put up billboards. They took time out of their personal lives to search through fields and streets day after day after day. If the public is emotionally invested, if a potential jury pool is emotionally invested, if they have strong opinions about this case, the blame for that lies squarely on Trezell and Jacqueline. They pulled the pin on the grenade, and then they were surprised when it exploded. And now we have another mother coming forward. When the news that Orrin and Orson were no longer alive, we heard from a woman named Magenia Williams. She was terrified because she claims that her 2 sons, Guillermo and Electro Parra, aged 8 and 10, they were also placed with the West family in 2018. Magenia told the media that she has not seen her sons since they were placed in the system 5 years ago. But she claims that she was told in confidence by someone inside CPS or inside Kern County that her boys had been placed with the West family, and now she has no idea where they are. She's asking for proof of life. She hasn't heard from them, and no one will tell her where they are. And if, once again, I don't know if she's telling the truth, but if that's true, that's a problem.
The case of Orrin and Orson West has prompted the birth mother of 2 unrelated children in Kern County's foster care system to step forward with concerns of her own. 17's Robert Price spoke to the parents of 2 other boys who they say are lost in the system.
With the adoptive parents of young Orrin and Orson West now accused of their murder, another set of parents whose children were put in the care of the same people are asking, what about their sons?
Magenia Williams says she has not seen her sons, Guillermo and Electro Parra, ages 8 and 10, for 5 years. And at some point, she says, they were placed in the foster care of Trezell and Jacqueline West. That's the couple charged Wednesday in the alleged murders of Orrin and Orson, ages 4 and 3. after more than a year of investigation that included combing the desert around the West's home in California City. By that time, DA Cynthia Zimmer says Orrin and Orson had already been dead for 3 months, which leaves Magenia Williams in anguish. Where are her boys? She and Israel Munoz, the boy's stepfather, say Kern County Child Protective Services isn't giving them any answers.
We don't know where they are. I'm asking for proof of life.
Proof of life, a phrase usually associated with kidnapping. Williams says a court official told her in confidence that her son's initial foster care placement was with Trezell and Jacqueline West, and that scares her.
Been there 6 years now. They were adopted all out in 2018 to the West. And then from there, I've seen and heard nothing from them.
Kern County Human Services tells 17 News they can't comment on any aspect of Williams' story. Munoz says the whole system is unfair.
It's breathtaking, but that's how CPS does things. CPS will come in your house, they break up families, they don't need to be broken up. Yeah. And then they give these kids away like they're puppies. I mean, where's our constitutional rights?
I saw a recent news story on this case and the new developments. I'll try to find the clip to play it for you. But in it, there's a woman, I believe this is the biological aunt of Orson and Orrin, and she says, you know, she hopes that the Wests will do the right thing now and tell everyone where the boys are so that Orrin and Orson can be brought home for a proper burial. Honestly, I hope that's true, but I doubt it. They've pleaded not guilty. Clearly, they're presenting a united front, but there is hope, I suppose, that one was more involved than the other, and the DA might be able to offer that person a deal in exchange for their testimony. However, I'm not encouraged by that because I guarantee you these lawyers are over here like, man, this case is a mess. There's been so much social media and media coverage. We can win this. We can win this with loopholes or technicalities, whatever it takes. We'll say that the jury pool was tainted. We'll ask for a change of venue. We'll do this. We'll do that. No body, no crime. As I said, I don't know what law enforcement and the DA have, but I am willing to bet it is a largely circumstantial case, even if that circumstantial evidence is massive. And circumstantial cases are notoriously hard cases to win as a prosecutor. So I'm sure that Trezell and Jacqueline have these hype men in their ears telling them that they've got this and ride it out. But in my honest opinion, they don't got this. They don't got this. And it's not about the publicity. It's about the writing being on the wall from very early on, in my opinion. The story never made sense. The surveillance footage clearly shows that those boys never left the yard and no one came in to steal away with them. The fact that Jacqueline and Trezell brought their other 4 children to their grandmother's house on the 19th, days before Orrin and Orson disappeared, that makes me feel like this was planned. They didn't want those kids there when they called the police and reported these boys missing. They didn't want the police to come in and say to the kids, hey, when's the last time you've seen Orrin and Orson? Or what happened? Were Orrin and Orson outside playing with chalk? Where were you when this happened? They didn't want that. It was easier for them to bring these kids away so that there was nobody else's story or narrative to go by. We have Orrin and Orson sent inside the home, which makes sense because most likely Trezell and Jacqueline had brought some of their belongings there, their clothing and stuff like that. So yeah, the scent is going to be inside the house, but it never was outside the house, which means to me that Orrin and Orson never lived in that house because they would have had to have gone outside at some point, right? In the aftermath of these boys going missing, the actions of Trezell and Jacqueline were not panicked. No one was running around looking for the boys. Jacqueline didn't even leave the house, and they never participated in any searches. The story never made sense, and I, along with almost everyone else, saw that right from the start. I didn't want to say it because, you know, there's always that chance that these people are innocent, and I'm not trying to contribute to a mob mentality that might end up with someone hurt or worse, but I thought it. I thought it hard. I don't believe that a jury of reasonable people will be able to look at all of that, plus whatever the DA has, and come back with not guilty, mainly because there's no alternative possibility. Based on the story we were told, based on the surveillance footage, based on the timeline, what else could have possibly happened? It doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense is Orrin and Orson were never there. The neighbors never saw them. The neighbors didn't know they lived there. Or did these kids never go outside? What's going on here? Now, what might have happened to little Orson and Orrin? And why did this happen? Was it intentional? Was it an accident that they needed to cover up? Were the boys being abused for an extended period of time? I can't speculate on it because I have no idea. I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know enough about Trezell and Jacqueline. They've been very private. Not many people are coming forward and saying much about them. However, I can speculate on a possible motive for why Trezell and Jacqueline adopted 4 children in the first place. 6 young children. That's a lot of little kids. And as far as I can tell, neither Trezell nor Jacqueline had steady employment at this point. According to Knott's Family Agency, the state of California pays foster parents an average of between $1,000 and $2,600 a month to help with the expenses of taking care of the child. And once that child becomes legally adopted by those foster parents, California offers an adoption subsidy of anywhere from $600 to $800. I'm not sure how it works, but I would imagine if a foster parent was taking kids in specifically for the paycheck, and this does happen, don't say it doesn't. I'm not saying that everybody does it. I'm not even saying it's the majority of people, but it does happen. There'd be a point where these parents would feel like, wow, we have to adopt these kids in order to keep the checks coming, because at some point the biological parents are going to want to get these kids back, and we don't want that to happen, because if that happens, the money stops. This could have been the motive for taking Orrin and Orson in the first place, but the motive for killing them, I'm not sure. I think, in my opinion, just what I think, most likely was a result of abuse. But we're going to wait and see what comes out during the trial. But I don't honestly think that they purposely killed these kids. However, they could have. They could have been like, hey, you're too rambunctious. He used that word so much, rambunctious. They're kids. They're 3 and 4 years old. They've got tons of energy. Yeah, they're going to be rambunctious, but maybe with the other 4 kids on top of Orrin and Orson, it was too much. It was too much for Jacqueline and Trezell. And they were like, how do we take care of this problem? We've adopted them now. They are legally like our children. We can't just give them back. So what do we do now? It's possible. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about this whole case in the comment section. Don't forget to check out HelloFresh. In the description box, there's a link that you can push, click, and also links to my social media, Instagram and Twitter, and links to my podcast, Crime Weekly, that I co-host every week with retired police detective Derek Levasseur. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for being here. I am in full-on work mode now. Lots of great content coming your way. Lots of interesting stuff. Some more strange and unusuals coming your way as well. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for telling me your thoughts in the comments. I love you guys so much. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. And I'll see you soon. Bye.
Well, the levee don't break now, and the bottle's going straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. Oh, these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're going back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood